did good.
This is the story of the search for mind control. Mission Mind Control.
To be able to create something that normally happens in the sun on an island in the Pacific, or to be able to rewrite a cell the way Craig Venter did, synthetic biology. We are now gods, but for the wisdom. The world's most serious human beings should be working on the twin nuclei problem. What do we do with new godlike powers given our history of conflict, our history of envy, our history of madness? We should definitely try it. Everybody believes that should work on that problem. Well, it's the Moses. It's the Moses thing. It's time to go. It's time to leave. This place is over. We get off the planet. I freak people out when I say that, but look at your world. Everybody who has a possible plan to avoid what is coming if we don't have one should work on the plan that she thinks best.
Now this is the plan. Get your ass to Moss.
Enough! Just go to the church. Guys, I can't hear the same story any more times of I tried to go to church, but it was too hard. Enough. You sit in the seat and you listen, okay? Enough. Just go to the church. Enough. Just go to the church. Enough. I'm tired of hearing your excuses.
Amen.
Enough, folks. Enough. Okay, put your big boy pants on. Enough, folks. We're done. We're done pretending we don't know how to give the pill to the dog.
Right. But they're much simpler than we ever imagined.
It's not that hard. Guys, we need you. High in openness, high in creativity, disagreeable people, you also need to be in the church. You put the pill in the peanut butter. You take the pill, you put it in the peanut butter, you give it to your dog. Enough.
Should be a meme.
That should be a meme.
I saw you toss the kites on high and blow the birds about the sky, and all around I heard you pass like lady skirts across the grass. Oh, wind blowing all day long. Oh, wind that sings so loud a song. I saw the different things you did, but always you yourself you hid. I felt you push, I heard you call, I could not see yourself at all. Oh, wind blowing all day long. Oh, wind that sings so loud a song. Oh, you that are so strong and cold of blow, where are you young or old? Are you a beast of field and tree, or just a stronger child than me? Oh, wind blowing all day long. Oh, wind that sings so loud a song.
Approaches are, that's where the alignment is between Grim and I.
Okay, so what is bringing down the fourth wall project, Grim?
A terrible spell, and part of that spell, the humans have the campfire circuitry. For whatever reason, probably because it. So the television engages that, and that's when you're tribal elders are passing on information and stuff. So like those things are hijacked and make everybody feel like they're audience. And like if you watch characters in series that do break the fourth wall, and that's what the fourth wall I'm referencing when I do it. It's the wall that behind which you are audience and not a human. So
Okay.
Hashtag paintball for Jesus, at Grim Grizz, hashtag break the fourth wall.
So like, you do like break the fourth wall that doesn't exist and be like,
break the fourth wall a little bit.
you really helped me break the fourth wall. Like, you know, it's just people.
Good poetry is definitely it's definitely always trying to break the fourth wall.
Always tried, as Grim Grizz says, to break the fourth wall to the degree that I can.
I waited for the Lord on high. I waited, and he heard my cry. Tell him we're dancing, we're busy dancing right now.
Tell them we're busy dancing right now. All right, welcome, Embody. It is Friday morning. It is the first Friday of the month. It is the time for the Bridges of Meaning question and answer. I have to adjust the camera. I have this fancy thing now. I don't have the I have a new the return of the messy homeless folks. Yeah. I have some homeless folks that are very clean and they always tidy up after themselves. And there's others that they stay for a couple weeks and then they leave and then I clean and then they come back. It's sort of like a Jesus parable, only that fortunately it's not 7 times come back after I sweep the house clean. But well, let's dig right in. Poor Alex. Luke says I'll never top his his live streams. Luke's been killing it on live stream lately, and yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Haven't watched the Grim Grizz Demir live stream yet, but Grim Grizz was pushing that on Twitter, but I haven't had a chance to see it. I've been busy. I've not made a lot of videos this week. Sorry about that. I really wanted to. I've just had a lot of pastoral things that needed attention and time, so I've been doing my day job. Although yesterday it was just all had to make a video, and so I start making this video, and it's all on the church and the end of Protestantism, and I'm doing commentary on my talk with Jordan Hall, and I've been going at it for about an hour, and I look up and I realize I didn't record most of it. By that point, it was 5:30. I had council meeting at 7, so it was like, nah, this ain't gonna happen. So it didn't happen. So yeah, no video this morning, but Larry Chapp fortunately released my conversation with him. I can never know how to say his channel name. It's this Catholic thing. He explained it to me when I had my first conversation with him. But I was really excited about that conversation. I was really excited about my conversation this week that I had with Preston Sprinkle. But like I said, it's been a busy week, and a lot of these other conversations get scheduled weeks ahead of time. And so then when it comes to other video making, if there's just stuff to do, I have stuff to do. I've been installing computers and doing a lot of that kind of stuff. Black Friday sales are really good at Living Stones for buying equipment at a discount that the church needs. So I've been working on that. So just been busy. Anyway, T Grog's in I even had special comments for T Grog. Yeah, that Larry Chapp conversation just really flowed. Some people tend to put me in preacher mode, and Larry did that. So it was nice. It was nice to be on the other side of the dialogue, and Larry's a cool guy. He really is. So it was cool. T Grog attending the live stream religiously. Well, just for the sake of T Grog and Al. Oh, I didn't set this up. I have all that extra time to set things up at the beginning, and in order to do stuff, that's why I start the live stream early, so I'm ready. But Alex wants to know. Alex has been in the Luke's live stream too. Alex wants to know about the parable of the 10 virgins. And I was actually, after I made my video commentary about Jordan Peterson's Jesus seminar and made comments about the simple gospel, the author contacted me, called me, dug up the number at Living Stones, called me, and we had a lovely chat. And hopefully I said, oh, I want you to come on the channel. Let's talk about your book. Let's talk about your story. So hopefully he'll come on. But it's part of the reason that the Bible, when preachers and scholars, they don't usually put the books together. They leave the books as they are, because it's important in terms of understanding what a specific text says. What's the context? And so Matthew 25 has all of these great parables, but the context begins in Matthew 24. Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came to him and called attention to the buildings. Do you see these things? He asked. Truly, I tell you, not one stone will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. And he's obviously talking about the destruction of the temple, but he's not only talking about the destruction of the temple. One of the things that I've been enjoying about the Exodus seminar is the polysemic understanding of the text is really coming back alive again. And texts aren't quite what we think they are. At least most texts aren't. And that's really sort of, with the recession of modernity, that's really coming about. But part of what's nice about meta-modernity, or that which is coming beyond modernity, what's the difference between post-modernity and meta-modernity, and how does all this work? We don't know yet, but it's the blessings of modernity hopefully are not fully lost in the readjustment from modernity. So you get Jesus talking about, you've got this little apocalypse, take the lessons of the fig tree, and then about the day of the hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. And then he talks about the parable of the 10 virgins. And so there's this, last week I preached on Daniel, and this week I preach on Joel. The entire New Testament is deeply apocalyptic. What do I mean by that? It's revelatory, and it provokes, in order to, as Vervaeke was talking about, to it's aporic. It's supposed to give us a degree of shock so that the superficiality we normally live within can be sort of pulled away, and we can see far deeper disclosures of the truth. And you have that in life. And that's sort of, in some ways, the function of the day of the Lord. So the day of the Lord, it's a very strong theme in the prophet Joel. It's deeply implicit and sometimes explicit, especially in the second half of Daniel. But you can't really understand the New Testament without understanding that Jesus wants the disciples to get this. Now, part of the weakness of our chronological, anti-symbolic approach to things is that we don't understand that history may not repeat itself, but it rhymes. And so figuring out the rhymes is helpful in terms of navigating what to do and when to do it. And the parable of the 10 virgins, at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like, at that time, there's a key, the kingdom of heaven, that's Gospel's articulation. A little later, somebody asks about eternal life. Kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 of them were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. Jesus has this way of bringing things that are seemingly not able to be put together, and does it, because on one hand, he sends his apostles out and says, don't take extra stuff, don't take money, just go out and announce the coming of the kingdom and live on what people give you. And so there's no extra oil that they're carrying. And in this parable, Jesus says, you have the 10 wise and the 10 foolish. At midnight, the cry rang out. Well, what is midnight? Midnight is sort of the darkest period. Here's the bridegroom, come to meet him. Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish one said to the wise, give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out. No, they replied. Oh, I thought Jesus was supposed to be generous. I thought Jesus was supposed to give. No, but not in this parable. And Jesus' parables are full of these kinds of contradictions. And again, in sort of this mechanical modernist way of thinking, why doesn't Paul mention Jesus' parables? When you see Paul say, and in Corinthians, contrast the word from the Lord, Paul clearly understands Jesus' parables and knows Jesus' parables. T. Grog wants to say Jesus' parables are later inventions. And it'd be like, why and how would Jesus' disciples make these up, especially given the fact that they're completely clueless? And why and how would these things be emerging? Is Mark sort of the original and Matthew and Luke work from him? I mean, it's fun having T. Grog around because it's sort of like having a time capsule, because the arguments that seem to have power from the 19th century into the 20th century, well, he's keeping them alive among us. So we salute you, and you're historical efforts. So then you have this moment, and the virgins aren't sharing. Oh, that doesn't seem terribly Christian. The virgins aren't sharing. Jesus says, give to all who ask, and now the virgins aren't giving to all who ask. I mean, these parables create these little worlds, and these little worlds create these stories, and they both conceal and reveal. And that's exactly the apocalyptic dance. It's this revelation. It's this little puzzle. And the puzzle isn't completely exhausted in, oh, this is the point of it. And that's kind of the nice thing about the Jesus seminar, as Peterson is doing it. It's sort of like a popcorn Bible study. Now, if you were some evangelical, you know what popcorn prayers are. You had those in college where everybody closes their head and then people just sort of pray spontaneously. That's sort of what the Jesus seminar is like. People are sort of blurting in spontaneously. I see this in the text, and I see this in the text, and I see this, and I'm connecting this with this, and I'm connecting this with this. So it's that's sort of what is happening. And what's been interesting is that we're able to do this for 2,000 years, and we keep doing it. Of course, it drives the modernists crazy because they want to say a dog is a dog until he's your dog and he gets hit by a car, and then it's not just a dog. But modernists don't want that, because a dog is a bunch of goopy, squishy, bloody guts. That it's a wet robot. So. And then later the others came. Lord, Lord, they said, open the door. That Lord, Lord, of course, is evocative. Lord, Lord, did we not heal the sick or raise the dead? Lord, Lord is what is what people cry when it's too late. And that's an element. So, I mentioned, and T-Grog, of course, got a big chuckle out of it. I haven't done Lord's Day 7 in the Heidelberg Catechism because I think Sam is right. Sam Tiedemann is right about the Christian Reformed Church on this. This question of this. So I was doing my men's Bible study, and someone asked a question that's actually asked later here about the millennium and the book of Revelation. Eschatology became a deep area of concern in the 19th and 20th century among certain Protestants, and what is happening now is the church is having a conversation about the redeeming power of God and whether and why there will be leftover. And this is part of what, so Luke is, I haven't watched that. I definitely want to watch it with Chris Green and Jordan Daniel Wood. It looks awesome. I appreciate both of them. So I definitely want to watch it, but it's interesting how the church right now is having this conversation about perdition and what does it mean? And we're also having this conversation about, okay, how do we think about afterlife? And, I sort of put this to Vervaeke in my last conversation with he and Peugeot. And John countered with a very strong counter, and I think he's right. He's right in the way that ruach and pneuma mean wind and spirit. And once sort of wind and spirit were separated, you can't quite put them together. Of course, this is very Barfieldian because, in a sense, the eschaton is the re-putting together of these things. And so part of what's fun about having the Orthodox around, it's sort of like making friends with someone with this massive antique store and library, because the Orthodox are bringing out all of these things that, well, we've sort of had access to them and the Orthodox have been around, but it's getting manifest in different ways. So we're working on that. But the payload of this, that one of the things that I think all of the talk about eventual reconciliation, I'll call it that, blunts is the very clear urgency that Jesus wishes to communicate in many of his parables, including this one. So you find these wise virgins doing all of these things that Jesus told his disciples not to do. What's with that? Well, the point of the parable is clearly Chronos and Kairos. Chronos is sort of time that goes this way, and Kairos is sort of time that goes this way. Chronos and Kairos have to be paid attention to. And there comes a point on Chronos where Kairos can no longer happen. And so the foolish virgins are outside of the locked door. Lord, Lord, open the door. And this is, I'm a part of the trickiness of doing the Heidelberg Catechism is it opens me to exposure in some ways that other things don't. And I don't want to be a weenie about it and duck the exposure. I also don't want to be dishonest about it and sort of fudge or take easy ways out to make sure that I limit exposure. So I want to seriously engage with the issues. And this issue of perdition is a serious issue. And there's absolutely nothing in reading Jesus or anywhere else in the Bible that should lead us to imagine that it isn't a serious issue. And that I think part of the facade of our current climate of prosperity and ease is that nothing matters. And it sort of feeds the meaning crisis and it feeds nihilism. And I think in some ways, ideas of, eventual reconciliation serve some of those soothing spirits that are perhaps don't have our best interests in mind. And so I think we need to take Jesus very seriously when he talks about be wise, get your act together, put your poop in a group, get ready because there will be a moment and you need to be ready for that moment and you need to be ready to act. So that's what the parable is about. So there you go. 20 minutes on the first question. True to form. Then we had some back and forth. And then I want to answer Nathaniel Franco's. Well, he didn't answer the question because there was a question that he thought someone asked if I'd answered the question. He says that it is an early modern understanding, meaning the supernatural, but he doesn't explain what it is. He doesn't explain what his understanding of natural or supernatural is. I talked about this a little bit with Larry Chapp, and Larry was a little bit better read. He had read some books about. So what happens in the modern frame is that the modern frame has what I call the scientific lab leak, which suggests that everything can be reduced to calculation. And that's sort of the aspirational vision of the modernist worldview. And even if you push a modernist and you say, okay, well, why don't you then account for something completely? They'll say, no, I can't account for it completely because that's beyond me. But, and this is what they won't say, my article of faith is that all can be accounted for completely with naturalistic, materialistic causes and effects. Lewis directly assaults this in his book, Miracles. And Lewis comes at this immediately with his idea of the whole show. The idea is, again, a religious vision that they will quickly say, well, I can't be expected to actually do what I claim is the truth. You have to take on faith that every thought, every action, every instantiation, any of our little Amazon boxes that we call facts, any of these things can be by faith completely reducible to a line of causation that goes all the way to the Big Bang. And that's, of course, then they're open to, well, what about the Big? Well, we can't talk about that. So, give me one miracle and I'll explain the rest. That's what's behind all of this. And what happens then is the supernatural is something that is outside that frame. And so the language developed in order to address the scientific lab leak. Now, The Blind Spot, this book that Vervaeke recommended to me and has been recommending quite a bit by one of the authors is his friend Evan Thompson. It's a great book, and it's written by scientists. And they nicely walk through the fact that there's a lot of fudging going on with science. And it's not necessarily in bad faith. It's just that you have to understand the assumptions that science is making when they are doing science. And one of those assumptions has to do with the laboratory, that they take things in a controlled situation and they say, what is in the controlled situation is analogous to what is out there with all of the elements around it. And it's helpful to remember that pragmatism grows out of this, because fairly early on, they discovered as they were creating laboratories that there are too many variables. Again, it's combinatorial explosiveness. There are too many variables and they can't account for all of them. So pragmatism, and if you read this other book that Peterson recommended early on, I keep forgetting the title. It's an excellent book on the rise of pragmatism. And they had it in astronomy because they very quickly realized that they couldn't calculate. There's too much information. There were too many stars to actually do the calculations. And so what they developed was the mathematics of statistics, which would reduce things down to probability. And again, with the scientific lab leak, all of these particulars of science are quickly forgotten and make way for the faith of science, which says everything is reducible down to mechanistic causality. And of course, Lewis says this is the whole show. And of course, they cannot actually demonstrate this on a massive scale because the world is too massive. So we completely forget all of that massiveness and they just continue asserting their faith. They might as well keep saying that Native Americans are the 10 lost tribes of Israel. If you just keep saying it enough, people will believe you. And if lots of high status people say it, people will believe you. So just on and on and on and on and on and on and on we go. And the fact about human beings is that we're ritualized. And once we absorb the ritual, we just take it as statements of fact. And of course, the internet is basically pummeling this to death because the liturgies of isolated communities are now being completely disrupted by the bombardment of all kinds of ideas and narratives. And we're just living in this haze of complexity until at some point, I don't know, we'll probably just turn the whole darn thing off or blow it up because we can't take it anymore. So the idea of the supernatural is embedded in this idea. The problem has come in biblical interpretation that we take this framework and we read that back onto the Bible. And then when we see miracles, we assume that, well, miracles are supernatural. But what then gets occluded and distorted is the much more ancient understanding of a miracle. Now, and this is, so Franco says, he insists that using this distinction is to adopt the modern frame. That's what I just made. He doesn't seem to know that this distinction has been at work in Christian thought since the beginning. No. You're reading supernatural back onto signs and wonders. And that little word sign is key because, okay, signs were not the exclusive remnant of Christianity. Even Bart Ehrman makes the argument that part of why Christianity succeeds in destroying paganism was that the signs offered by the Christians, or at least the ones related, were more compelling than the signs offered by the wonder workers. And there are plenty of wonder workers around. Everybody's got their miracles to do. You can read Read Roman history. It was not that the Romans were somehow secularist. They were anything but secularist. Well, what was now again, this doesn't distract from the ordinary and, let's say, the marvelous or the extraordinary or the signs or the wonders, but that's not supernatural. See, all of this supernatural stuff is basically what happens in the modern period as modernity sort of continues to pick up steam. People begin to realize, oh no, we're at risk of losing our privileged place in society. And so what we have to do is adapt Christianity to the modern frame. And that was actually a fairly successful thing. But a lot of the adaptations, well, they're still with us today. And one of them is, again, the supernatural. But if you read the Bible closely, you begin to realize that that wasn't the frame. Go all the way back to, let's say you want to go way back, go back to Moses and Pharaoh's magicians. Pharaoh's magicians do signs, but Moses' signs are greater. And basically what these wonder workers, and Jesus was considered a wonder worker, what these wonder workers are demonstrating is that they, in fact, are in alignment, in relationship. They, in fact, have divine power that they are bringing into the world in tangible ways that everyone can see. That framing is fundamentally different from supernatural. And that's why in order to have people understand what I think is a more biblical ontology and a more biblical frame of reference, this is why I resist that word supernatural, even though it came in the modern period to be something that was used. It was first used in polemics between Catholics and Protestants, because the Catholics had the miracles and the Protestants had the explaining. And then when the Catholics have to sort of rejigger the canonization process, and this is, again, the ways that the Catholic Church was impacted by modernity in some ways that the Orthodox and more ancient churches weren't, then suddenly the Roman Catholic Church establishes a mechanism by which to try to eliminate the bunk from the genuine article. And because basically what was happening is that everybody understood that there was mass corruption in the selling of relics and in all sorts of things. And the Protestants were extremely effective at making the Catholics look foolish by, okay, how many pieces of the cross are there? And that's where you get this, what should be a limited frame of reference, where it's very useful and very powerful to work through the careful analysis to try to find causes for dynamics in the world. That's what science, not really, or technology is built on, because technology is built on the reproducibility of this. But so that was very powerful, and it changed the Catholic Church. And now suddenly the Catholic Church had to adapt to this. And so, but every time you say supernatural, you're just basically bending the knee to the modern frame. And even though people understood in the time of the New Testament that feeding the 5,000 was a sign and a wonder, what was it a sign of? And again, read Lewis's Miracles about signs of the old creation and signs of the new creation. These basically, Jesus' miracles are not arbitrary. And for a lot of the really cool things I got from the Jesus seminar treatment of Jesus' temptations in the wilderness by the devil, again, as with the baptism, one of the things that I think they missed was, it was alluded to briefly, but I would have given it, it's just the way people are, I would have given it more attention, that Jesus' signs are not arbitrary. And that's part of the problem with the supernatural, because once you sort of embrace this modernist frame of natural and supernatural, you're presented with the problems of Islamic miracles, Jewish miracles, pagan miracles, animist miracles, New Age miracles. You're presented with, so what happens in Christianity is you have this excluded middle. And again, missiologists have been working through these ideas for 50 years now, where secularized Western Christians went to Africa and other places, and you basically have God and us. And yeah, there's angels and demons, but we push them to the side. There's gods and us. And another thing that's happening currently with the recession of modernity is that the middle is flowing in again. And so when you look at Rod Dreher's book, that's basically what's happening, is that the reenchantment, the middle is flooding in again against I can't remember his name, the guy who worked for Logos. It's not Heiser, is it? Anyway, so the middle is flooding in again, and that's what's happening now. And so now we're seeing the middle again. And so, but we're seeing the middle now post-modernity, which means there are more ways that we're bringing more to this than they did. And again, it's those fundamental changes. But the problem that you have then with the supernatural is some of the problems that have occurred in terms of the excluded middle dynamics then get mapped onto the renewed vision of the middle. Now that sounds probably inscrutable to some of you, but that's the best, shortest way I can say it. And so again, that's why I don't like the supernatural framing of it, because it's going to bind you in ways that the ancient framing was better. What does life everlasting mean? Well, so Matthew, you've got the kingdom of heaven. Mark, you've got the kingdom of God. Now, why heaven versus God? Well, because Matthew is written to a Hebraic audience who has sensibilities with respect to the GD word. And so heaven is just a circumlocution. It's not a bad one. And then Luke has kingdom of God. Again, both Mark and Luke were written for a broader Gentile audience. And then you have Paul with in Christ, and you have John with eternal life. Now, I am not particularly happy with that English translation, because if you look in Greek, it's life of the age. Now, why don't New Testament translators just translate it life of the age? Eternal life, okay, so let's go. So there's the King James. Let's go to John 3. Let's just search. Okay. 436. And he that reapeth receiveth wages and gathereth fruit unto life eternal. Okay, life eternal. This again has to do with the fact that, again, this is one of the weaknesses of modernity. So modernity wants to reduce everything to these little Amazon boxes. So one of these little Amazon boxes says eternal, and one of these little Amazon boxes says life. And what we imagine is that eternal always means the same thing, and life always means the same thing, whereas both words are really very slippery and in some ways very squishy. So if you go to, can I do this? The Logos has changed some things. If you go to the Greek, it's life of the age. Well, what on earth do you mean if they rendered it life of the age? Now, the King James translators understood the relationship between the age and eternal. But what is eternal? Now, remember, we had this lined up with heaven, God, in Christ, eternal is sort of the clock of heaven. Now, again, this gets into why Galileo and modernity was so devastating against what Lewis called the discarded image, because it used to be assumed that life down here in the age of decay was different qualitatively once you get past the moon out into the heavens. All of those mechanics are different. And again, I know some of you are going to say, yeah, those foolish Christians. No, it's Aristotle. That the eternity is up there. It's static. Now, on one hand, there's no life up there, to the best that we know. Ooh. But there is life up there. Well, what kind of life is up there? Well, that's the eternal. Well, how does that relate to time? Yeah, just answer that. So life of the age is a quality of life that is of heaven. So now the kingdom of heaven, now you can begin to see the relationship. And John does use kingdom of heaven, I think 2 or 3 times in the gospel. But you can begin to see the relationship between the kingdom of heaven and life eternal. Now, again, as with the supernatural framing, life eternal begins to mean for people something like everlastingness. And that begins to mean for people a long time infinitely. And that's why I'd love to do a little bit of research where this meme, eternal conscious torment, comes from. Because it's even right there built into the meme. Because eternal conscious torment, once you use that word conscious, now suddenly we begin to see our current conversations coming in here. And then we tend to map that back onto other understandings of time, temporality, process, et cetera, et cetera. So in shorthand, eternal life is life of the ages, life of the age to come, life of heaven. Now, how does that relate to time? I don't know. I think we have, like I said, we have Chronos, which is sort of watch an analog clock turn. That's sort of Chronos. And then you have Kairos. It's time stood still. And the day of the Lord monkeys with time. So when, again, there's a shock, and it could be a good shock or a bad shock. Let's say you're crushing on, you're in high school or college, and you're crushing on some man or woman that you've had your eye on, and then your eyes meet, and you're getting indications that, you know, maybe this love won't be unrequited, and maybe it's like time slows down. Or maybe you're waiting in an uncomfortable airplane, you know, a tiny little seat, and you're sitting on the tarmac, and time slows down. Time and consciousness have a very strange relationship. And so eternal conscious torment is that way sort of a cheat. So eternal life is life of the heavens. And what on earth is that like? And basically, I think part of the reason that the Bible gives us evocative, imagistic language about the life of the age to come is it's probably not something that we can fundamentally, as the Apostle Paul says, I can't quite talk about it. Well, why can't you talk about it? Because in a lot of ways, all of my talking is embodied, and it rises from my personal experience and from my collective group, and I don't have the words for it. And you know, it's sort of like, you can use the illustration of, well, describe what it was like before you were born. Was there time there? Yeah, there was time there. There was 9 months of gestation. Can you describe it? And then we sort of project sort of images. Well, maybe I was sort of in this amniotic sac, and I was breathing water. What? You breathe water? I mean, it's even thinking about every single one of you listening to this spent somewhere between 6 to 9 months living in some ways as an alien. You just did. Your lungs were filled with amniotic fluid. You had a tube tied to your belly. You were constrained. Maybe you had a partner in there with you, elbowing you, and then you were punching, kicking. I mean, we sort of use our imagination to kind of get into that, and we were all there. But so what can we say about the life to come? Well, the Bible does say things about the life to come, but it's not in a frame that, and we have a frame that we can easily articulate. And we have experiences of that with dreams. I dreamed last night that somehow I was playing golf, which I never play. And I was putting, and when I putted the ball, it was just all weird. And then suddenly the golf ball shrank. And, nor if I'd seen that and be, oh, it's supernatural. It's what happens in dreams. So we don't know. But it's basically life of the age to come. Now, the Bible tells time in a very strange way, in that we're in an intermediate state where the resurrection has already begun in Christ, and we're awaiting our resurrection. And so the Apostle Paul talks about this, that inwardly we're being renewed. So we're in an intermediate state. And so there are moments when the kingdom of heaven comes upon us. There's moments when eternal life is tangible. And then there are other times when it seems so far away. Would Jordan Peterson be stuck as if he is C.S. Lewis were alive to talk to him? Yes. He's got C.S. Lewis. He's read C.S. Lewis. When I had my conversation with Jordan Peterson in April of 2018, I had like 6. I came into that conversation. I thought, I got a half hour. And he's a famous talker. There's like 5 or 6 things I wanted to both, had my shot at getting into his brain and hear him answer from. And one of those was Lewis. And he's clearly engaged with Lewis to a degree. And myself and others immediately saw that a lot of what Lewis wrote about was extremely connected with where Jordan was going. But you must be born from above. And I talked about this at length with Larry Chapp, the conversation that he released this morning. It's on his channel. I'll bring it to my channel at some point. But the illustration I use with this is Paul of Tarsus. Paul of Tarsus is sitting there holding the cloaks for those who are stoning Stephen, and the heavens open, and Stephen has a vision of heaven. And I asked the question, well, if you're going to open the heavens and you got Stephen right there and you got Paul standing next to him, why don't you kill 2 birds with 1 stone and do the road to Damascus deal on Paul? God doesn't. And Paul goes from there and viciously attacks the church. And then it's not until the road to Damascus that Jesus stops him. Why wait? God is sovereign, gets to do what he wants. He's got his reasons, we assume. So Jordan Peterson is where he is. And I think he's been doing really effective work as an evangelist. Someone maybe it's in the question and answer, someone says basically, well, maybe Peterson's a secret Christian, but he's not. I think Jordan has been telling us all along, with certain reservations. One of the things you learn as a clinical psychologist is you have to keep a veil. Preachers do the same thing. There's what I have out in public, and there's what I have in private. But Peterson's been remarkably transparent. Peterson talks a lot about his personal life, and Peterson keeps getting bombarded with this question. And, people sometimes argue, I think with persuasion, that whatever Peterson's done in terms of not being able to answer the question in a way that many of us would answer it directly has proved to be effective in terms of holding attention of his audience. So Jordan is Jordan. And I think, just like if we could go back and sort of watch the evolution of Paul of Tarsus, Vervaeke asks, presses this point in the latter part of in the John 3 section of the Jesus Seminar in episode 2. And Vervaeke says, Augustine wasn't just sort of zapped in a moment. And some of this came through Methodism, which had the idea that, well, write in your Bible the moment of your conversion. And many of us are like, well, I don't know. It seems like God's been working on me for 61 years. There are certainly moments that are more salient than others, but I can't distill it down into one time. So who knows? Has Peterson read any of Lewis's books? I think Peterson has read some Lewis. How much Lewis has Peterson read? Now, Peterson and his book reading I think many academics, they're not going to be academics unless they are gifted with being able to read very quickly and with high comprehension. And I would imagine that's true of Peterson. But that's only one way of understanding. I'll say it that way. So, yeah, who knows? I don't know. But Peterson mentions Lewis semi-regularly. Regarding prophelicity, as it stands amongst sincerity and authenticity, when we examine our identity with sincerity, we look at issues of social commitment. And when we examine authenticity, we look at individual integrity. Good. But when it comes to prophelicity, what are we looking at? Our transjective identity. So I like how you broke this down. Sincerity is sort of where we are in our community. Authenticity is sort of where we are in ourselves. Prophelicity sort of broadens the community that we engage with upon different platforms. So in that sense, prophelicity is connected with both and in conversations with both. What, aside from receiving feedback on the sincerity and authenticity front, will tell us, either individually or collectively, that someone or ourselves is participating in prophelicity in an inappropriate or unhealthy way? Well, now you've brought normativity in. And so that sort of explodes it, because lying. Okay, let's talk about lying. Lying is a tricky thing because it impinges on sincerity and authenticity, and lying really has everything to do with authenticity because it has to do with integrity. Lying means I'm going to use my words in one way here and in another way there, or within myself, I know something to be different and I'm going to use it another place. One of the things that annoys me often is when I hear people sort of put misspeaking and lying together. If I misspeak, it's not a lie. Lie is intentionally deceiving to achieve a particular outcome. And often those outcomes have a lot to do with reputation. Now we get into a tricky thing with prophelicity. So let's say I decide that I am going to I'm going to get into Instagram. And I don't do anything on Instagram, and I saw one of my kids, they're kind of fling, 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 fling. I said, what's that? It's kind of like TikTok. No, it's Instagram. And some of them are little videos and some of them are stills. So let's say I would get into Instagram, and what I would do with Instagram is I would, get rid of these blotches on my face. Maybe I'd give myself hair again. Maybe I'd finally get my beard in order. Maybe I'd fix myself. Okay. But I did. Well, I did trim my beard just a little bit this morning because I hate it when my beard gets in my mouth with my food. And I did cut my nose hairs this morning because, well, while I'm at it, I might as well do both. And then I looked at the rest of the beard. It's like, I don't have time for that. On one hand, dress up. Well, clothing hides a multitude of flaws. Is it lying? So there's all these nuances, and now we have all these new platforms. And on one hand, we tell people to put their best foot forward. But part of what came as a result of that, of all of that particular kind of kayfabe, is that we then desired transparency, vulnerability, because we sort of got sick of the show. So then there was the authenticity where I should tell you exactly what I think. Well, actually, I think many things. And so there's a picking and choosing in them. So figuring out inappropriate or unhealthy, those things take a while, because what then eventually arises are norms. And so when I compare, let's say, JFK and LBJ with Donald Trump, you can see the norms shifting. And, part of the video I talked about, I mentioned this with Jordan Hall. The Stormy Daniels affair with Donald Trump is super interesting because it's sort of like Schrodinger's cat. He both needs to have slept with Stormy Daniels and not slept with Stormy Daniels. Because if either one isn't true, Donald Trump won't be who Donald Trump is. So he needs to go to court and deny that he slept with Stormy Daniels, even though, really? The reason we believe he slept with Stormy Daniels is he's Donald Trump. We don't believe Barack Obama slept with Stormy Daniels. So you have these weird things that, and somehow JFK sleeping with Marilyn Monroe enhances his mystique, even though it violates Camelot. But right there, you begin to see these mixed signals in terms of, well, what is a man? Because on one hand, the virility of a man says he should be able to sleep with the most beautiful harlot in America. And then what is a harlot? Is Marilyn Monroe a harlot? Well, is that fair to Marilyn Monroe? Is it fair to sort of compare Marilyn Monroe to Stormy Daniels? And to what degree are their times different? So when we have the confusion, we have to begin to deal with, okay, what are the norms? And how should we judge these people? Because a evolutionary biology would say that a male at the top of the hierarchy should have access to the best women. Okay, well, what is a best woman? Is a best woman, does she look a certain way? Does she have a certain IQ? Is she fertile in a certain way of bringing lots of children? Because you have Rachel and Leah, and who is the best woman? Jacob loves Rachel, but she's barren. Leah is nothing to look at, perhaps, but she's fertile. So here you're having this conversation about what is an ideal woman? What is an ideal man? And part of what's weird about the American system, partly because of the not having a state church that we tend to pick archetypal presidents. We are working archetypes when we pick presidents. That's why Joe Biden had to leave the race, and it's why Donald Trump won the race. So we're continuing. Does prolificity also have its own unique critical measure like sincerity and authenticity that can be consulted? Well, there will be a technical aspect to it, but I think it isn't primarily technical. Or are all assessments around prolificity identity being curated appropriately or inappropriate? We're working on it. I mean, in some ways, we haven't even sort of figured out what a photograph is. So I've spent a lot of time listening to tech blogs, and Dieter Bohn had, back when he was with The Verge, used to, when, as they're figuring out cell phone cameras, what is a photograph? Because Samsung and Google and Apple all have their different interpretations on what a photograph is. Samsung and Apple are working the hardware. Google sort of keeps the same hardware and works the software. So Samsung's pictures tend to be a little bit juiced. The colors are more vivid, and we like that. And so then you do all of these internet tests about phone cameras and which one's better. And prophilicity just takes that and goes far, far deeper. Oh, T-Grog. Have you watched my channel this long and think I have Christianity all figured out? Have you not been able to distinguish this little corner from YouTube, Christian YouTube? Oh, it's so funny. All right. I'll have to fill up my water cup. So we're gonna take a momentary break. Let's take it with this.
Still I have it. There are moments I conveniently forget that I'm a 40-year-old man. The last vestiges of a ghost long dead. The ghost with a messiah complex. A messiah too lazy to rise or ascend. Happily hurt and hard. A hanger-on or haunting of a time past. A heroic dream of the harrowing of hell. Failure to launch. Cling to a life vest. Treading in spells that linger and last. Mom and Dad, righteous and mad, daydreamers with ghosts of their own. My memory of them stoic, looking with aims to pretend. Always on the brink of somewhere. Each a child dancing on the fence. On down the river. Dreamt in the sunshine. Saturday morning cartoons, the only Sabbath I knew. A disciple of Jim Henson and John Hughes. Worship in cathedrals where the Toys R Us. Baptized in ball pits. A clown served the sacrament we eat. More Pepsi and Pizza Hut. Say please. Say cheese. Between Kurt Cobain, a scrambled cable screen, towers tumbling, Super Bowls, and reality TV, the ghost is constitutionally unwilling and intrinsically unable to see and be seen, searching madly for attention to seek. But you could be anything. Never say never. you've got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing, ever. Don't talk to strangers. See what I say, just do it. You don't listen very well, do you? You don't do very well, do you? You're not looking too good, are you? Keep up. Appearances aren't what they seem. Will you ever grow up? You look like you're stuck. I think you took too much. Echoes the ghost within the host, who prays the dead bury their dead and stay buried in a fading dream.
I love that. I love that little piece. I love that little piece. All right. Hey, there was just right there at the halfway mark. That's pretty good. I'm getting better at this set thing, this fake set thing. All right, on with the questions. Thoughts on a theory? No, here. In a recent interview, Peter Thiel said that the Benedict option, retreat into a monastery, is the height of political social irresponsibility and will hasten the coming of a one-world government antichrist. Well, that's interesting. What are your thoughts? Where's the meeting ground between saving one's soul and saving one's community? So in my conversation with Larry Chapp, he noted he doesn't vote. And he explained that a little bit there, which I thought was interesting. And he lives in Pennsylvania. His vote, his presidential vote counts. I mean, the parties are pouring thousands, millions of dollars into getting Pennsylvanians to vote a certain way, and he doesn't vote at all. I'm skeptical that you can sort of dispense with monasteries as ducking, because as what was the order established by Rome as it was collapsing in Europe, it was the monasteries that sort of preserved and civilized and evangelized the tribes. In other words, there's a power to a witness that ducks politics. And Jesus embodies this, because Jesus does both. But yet you don't find Jesus spending all of his time railing against Tiberius, swimming with children at Capri. So this is one of the really tough issues for now, because we have to. One of the real blessings of modernity was, in some ways, an ending. I don't have to put Tigran in prison, and I have not banished him from the. Why haven't I banished Tigran? Is Tigran a distraction in the live chat? He part of this is, I think, someone's sort of the Tigran spirit. You have to let it sort of work through the body, and like a too spicy burrito, and at some point it'll sort of lose its potency. The monasteries were really foundational, but then, of course, at the early modern period, there's a transformation, and the monasteries sort of get retooled into the universities. And so the fact that these things don't go away. Newspapers are still here, magazines are still here, radio is still here. They just get changed. And so I don't know that you can really necessarily reduce the Benedict option to this. I think what part of the point that Dreer was making is if you are laboring faithfully in a small thing, you do not labor in vain. And I think part of the Benedict option is an antidote to some of the complete colonization that we're seeing with people losing, people's politics becoming their religion. In some ways, the Benedict option is opponent processing to that dynamic. I'll say it that way. Are you familiar with the Kill Tony podcast? I am not. If not, check out episode 599. Van Gogh's ear, do you think that the mature in age have a certain responsibility in listening to the young? Yes. I've seen videos now of people 50 plus talking about how they have basically checked out of social life. Yeah, I see that often. They don't seem to care to listen to the young or strive for something greater. Do people grow more cynical as they age in your experience? Sometimes cynicism is a disease that experience can engender. When it's interesting, if you watch the Lord of the Rings movies, I haven't really gone back to the book and checked this with respect to the books, but the elves are in a particular conundrum because on one hand, they're leaving Middle Earth, but they're watching the return of Sauron and the collapse of Saruman, and they have the option to just leave. In some ways, this is sort of connected. I don't think the Benedict option is escapism. So the elves have to decide, well, what do I do? And so let's say with the particular take that the movie goes with respect to Helm's Deep, with the elves showing up there, those elves are in some ways, they die on a battlefield when they could just leave the scene. And you're going to find seniors that leave the scene, and you're going to find seniors that don't. But that's the same with young people too. So, find your calling and be faithful to it. Oh boy. End of questions for December. Okay. Blessed St. Nicholas Day. Have you punched a heretic? Nope. But I'll try to honor him with my beard. What was it like living in New York City during Son of Sam killing? This is part of the weirdness of the screens. I remember very much. So I was a news junkie as a kid. I watched the news all the time. While other kids were listening to music, I was listening to talk radio. There was this New York City radio station, 1010 Wins AM. Give us 20 minutes, we'll give you the news. And I'd listen to that. And so it was funny because in high school, it was kind of a random thing. They had this current events competition, and it's like, there were two winners, and I was one of the two. I just smoked the thing because I was just always listening to the news and reading the news, and I was a news junkie. That was in some ways my religion, and that's in some ways the religion of everyone. And so Son of Sam comes along, and I just sort of watched it. I wasn't afraid of it, even though it was New York City was just less than 20 miles from my home. It was also sort of a world away. I was in my world of school, and I wasn't afraid that Son of Sam was going to be doing anything to me. I was a school kid. So, hi, Paul. I have a question. The millennium. Oh, okay. This is Alex talking about the millennium. I had to answer this in my men's Bible study the other night, and maybe I can shorten it. The millennium is in some ways brought into the present dispensation on both ends. So, and as is the tribulation. They're basically integrated. They're subsumed into this period between first and second coming. And part of the reason why, and this was the dominant view of this question all up until, I mean, that doesn't mean that there weren't certain people, but the 19th century America enters into a millennialist fervor. And I think in some ways that millennialist fervor had to do with all sorts of things. And part of it has to do with this modern way of reading the Bible, where part of what happens in dispensationalism is they basically take a modernist way of reading and a strong biblicism, and they say things like, well, everything in the Old Testament needs to be fulfilled. And that sets up some really weird and ahistorical practices of reading the Bible. And what's interesting is that that was so popular that for many living in America, you'll find lots of churches that were deeply impacted by dispensationalism, even though it's a super weird heresy, heretical way of reading the Bible, where this modernist approach to the world of distilling everything down into these little Amazon boxes. Well, then you take the King James Bible and every word is this little Amazon box. So 1,000 years. And so now we're going to look for 1,000 years. Okay. And then you have the tribulation, and then you have the pre-trib, and it just, and you can see the recession of modernity already began theologically with the decline of dispensationalism. And dispensationalism has been in decline because increasingly, as even scholars in dispensational schools came to terms with their own tradition, they've sort of left it behind. And you can see that happening to a lot of the groups that sort of arose in 19th century America. So basically, there are two things going on right now. One is that the reign of Christ continues to colonize the world, and the other is that opposition is always present. And you can find them in unequal measures at different times and places. So the millennium is always with you, and the tribulation is always with you. And so churches have basically said that's sort of the way things are until the end. And that's in many ways sort of the Amil position, which is the historic position of the church. And it's just weird for a lot of Americans to hear that, because dispensationalism was wildly popular in the kinds of churches that were doing a tremendous amount of conversion to Christianity. And that set up all of these interesting aspects of American evangelicalism and American fundamentalism and American revivalism. So just do some reading on the history of dispensationalism, and do some good reading on the history of dispensationalism. Hi, Paul. As I'm sure you're aware, Tom Holland's opinion that is that Jesus' family likely never traveled to Bethlehem, and that Jesus was probably born in Nazareth. To what extent do you, throughout your career, wrestle with the historical problems or the chronological inconsistencies the New Testament presents? Were they relatively unimportant to you, or were there periods where you dig into the bottom to find the answer that satisfied your intellect? These are the kinds of things that T-Grog likes to bring into the comment section, and you can just take these books, and that's why you could sort of take a lot of T-Grog's comments and turn them into a bot, because all you have to do is fill in the biblical reference. And I'm sure I could do this with ChatGPT. I could say, give me all of the atheist arguments concerning John 3. And ChatGPT would just spit them all out at me. And many of these arguments have been around for a very long time. They've been talked about. And I don't think, again, so I was just before this, I was listening to Benjamin Boyce's channel. He had Dave Green, the distributist, and he had Mike Young, Local Distance. He had those two on, and those two are fun to listen to. So I was listening to them this morning, and this, I was also reading Dostoevsky's Note from the Underground because I wanted to pull a quote into my sermon. And, this question where this quote that Peterson points to all the time, Dostoevsky basically says human beings are not rational, and the world is not the sum accumulation of Amazon box facts as they accumulate into the world, and history is not the whole show. And this particular religion is increasingly falling on hard times. And actually it was Dr. Jim, the cardiologist from Idaho, that pointed this out to me when he said, when the new atheisms arose, that was probably part of the death throes, because they feel their kingdom slipping away, and so they fight all the harder, which is itself sort of a tribulation argument. And because their kingdom is slipping away. And so, but I have also noted that it doesn't mean that there isn't power there. And so I've mentioned before that there was a period before I really got into the YouTube thing where I was reading C.S. Lewis's book Miracles, 2-3 times a year for a few years, because I was trying to grok what Lewis was dealing with. And Lewis was basically dealing with that religion that has been pervasive in our culture. The blessings of modernity are that, in some ways, modernity arose to bring some discipline to just a lot of sloppiness, and we gained a lot from it. I'm not an enemy of modernity, but its overreaches were pretty destructive. And I think Vervaeke is right that the overreaches have a lot to do with the current dispensation of the meaning crisis. So on one hand, I'm not a skeptic. I love Jonathan Peugeot's argument for this, that once you begin to understand the patterns in life, of course Donald Trump is going to sleep with Stormy Daniels. That's similar to Jonathan Peugeot's argument for the resurrection. Of course Jesus rose from the dead. Just look at the patterns. Of course he slept with Stormy Daniels. Now, do you need to try to extract a semen sample out of Stormy Daniels' vagina? No. Did he use a condom? In some ways, that's sort of what the modernists become. Just part of the craziness of my channel is here you have a Christian Reformed minister talking about extracting Donald Trump's semen from Stormy Daniels' vagina. We are living in clown world. So, and Christians have known many of these issues about the Bible for a very, very long time. Augustine talked about them. Calvin talked about them. Many others talked about them. And the material layer of reality is not unimportant. It's extremely useful. It's an extremely important thing for us as material creatures. But as Jesus said, man does not live on bread alone. And I thought they treated that very well in the Exodus seminar, because part of the point of Jesus saying that is, if you can understand why affluent people take their own life and don't sort of try to dismiss it with ideas of depression. It doesn't mean that depression isn't real, and it doesn't mean that people who suffer from depression don't take their own lives at higher levels. I'm not saying any of that, but I'm saying, making the point that Dostoevsky makes, that to say that human beings are rational as rationality is construed by a certain modernist approach to the world, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Because, T. Grog wouldn't have to expend all the effort he does arguing for it if it was just as true as he imagined it was. It's a religion that has to be propped up. And now that it's failing for reasons of his own, he's trying his darndest to keep it from, I don't know why on earth he picked this crazy little corner, because most of the people here have basically resolved the questions he's wrestling with in their own minds and just simply moved on. And they're not anxious about blind Bartimaeus and how many Jerichos. And I mean, again, all that stuff is just so well trodden. So is it unimportant? No. Do I wrestle with it now? No, not a lot. I don't. It doesn't mean what you think it means. And you just can't sit down and explain it to someone. So, yeah. Is the corner ready for the mystical significance of the Bible stories? Depends on what you mean by mystical. So, for a long time, even way before this, providential, I have this whole commentary series that basically goes through church fathers and looks at biblical references and sort of takes the church fathers, and you can open like anything in the Bible and you can see what church fathers said about it. It's pretty cool. Sometimes I read that and it's like, what the heck are they talking about? But then we had these modernist commentaries that were so completely, see, first they were all questioned about, okay, well, what really happened? See, the problem with the what really happened approach is that, again, you have to do as in the blind spot, you have to remove the observer. Because, well, what really happened when JFK was shot? Well, there's a tiny little place in Texas that everybody's focusing on. But what really happened in World War II? Did Uncle Sam stride across the Pacific Ocean and beat the crap out of the Japanese Navy? Yes. Does that mean a really tall man wearing striped pants and having a stovetop hat strode through the water like one of these things from Pacific Rim and grabbed a battleship and went like this? Kind of. He did it with airplanes. So I was thinking about the word mystical this morning because, okay, what do we mean by that word? And people are sort of using that word in a really fudgy way lately. And it's sort of a popular fudgy way. The reason fudge works is because it's sweet and gooey and we like it a lot. It's full of fat and sugar. So are people ready? What does that mean? I don't know. What are, if any, the problems with smuggling? He who is to be worshipped the most, smuggling, he who is to be worshipped the Most High. Well, smuggling is the idea that something consequential is coming in that the watchers can't find. And that, that's why I think, is it Eric Weinstein who Eric or Brett talked about Jesus smuggling? What is wrong with it? Problems? Not a lot. I don't see any real problems. Do you get my message about Martin Shaw's class and the crossover between storytelling? I didn't get your message. How much of preaching is show and tell? It seems our modern approach to a lot of tell and not a lot of show. Do you agree? I didn't get your message, but yeah, that's true. So This is what I was talking about with Jordan Hall and the end of Protestantism, because Protestantism is sort of the child of modernity that basically imagines you can sit down and you can tell it straight. Yeah, and there's a time for that, and there are places for that. Because, did you or didn't you not have sex with Miss Lewinsky? What was that conversation about? Oh gosh. I can't let this podcast go in all these directions of presidential illicit sexual adventures. And that's the point. Things aren't what we think they are about. So one of the things you might know in my sermons, and I post them plenty, so there's no, a long time ago, I made a decision about preaching because I noticed that what usually happened was preachers would start with their little text at the beginning, and their text is like this diving board. And the text is the diving board, and the quality of the sermon is how many flips or twirls or things that the preacher can do and see how much splash they have in the water. It's like a diving competition. And I thought, that could be effective and powerful and cool, but I think what I want out of my sermons is that people maybe get a chance to hear something out of the Bible. So you'll notice that most of my sermons have a little bit more introduction than most often, and then most of the sermon just walking through the Bible passage, and then I conclude it with misery, deliverance, gratitude. Those are my sermons. And I do that because the truth is you really can't tell or show people almost anything. It's really hard. And everything has to do with the context. I mean, the whole conceit behind, let's say, a courtroom drama is all about that. And courtroom dramas are all about apocalypse, because you set the stage, and then boom, there's the reveal. And that's impactful for us because we're not terribly attentive creatures. And as Ian McGilchrist and many others have been pointing to, what you pay attention to is sometimes as important as the thing you are paying attention to. In other words, the editing that is going on in your preconscious attention directional is probably of more consequence than what exactly you're looking at. So I thought I heard someone knocking. So it's just the homeless people out there. So in that way, storytellers are like magicians, because what magicians and storytellers do is they increasingly pull in and control the context and then deliver the payload. You can see that with Nathan and David. You are that man. That's what storytellers do. And so there is a fair amount of sleight of hand in storytelling, because what storytellers do is they create a world. And what that is they are shaping the context in which the payload will be deployed. Have you seen the Young Anglican channel? No. He apparently knows your channel and has made videos inspired by your content. Where are your converts? Where are your children? Where are your priests? I've heard nothing of this. There we go. I'm a subscriber. Pretty boring YouTube watching me surf somebody's channel. So don't know. So thanks for the heads up. Would you consider joining me and Jeff P for a miracles reading group? No, but I want you to do it. I'd probably join you now and then, depending on my schedule. So yeah, Jeff is like, you should, should do that in my channel. I'm so freaking ADHD, and this is the hardest thing for people to understand about my channel. And for how I sort of differ from Christian YouTube. Too many Anglicans in social media. That's funny. It went too fast. I say this often. I'm a very selfish YouTuber. I make the videos I want to make. Now, if I were an ardent Christian YouTuber, I would have a program, and it would be organized, and it would be designed to achieve the hegemony of the Christian Reformed Church, or a certain kind of Calvinism, or neo-Calvinism, or evangelicalism, and I struggle to do that even in my own church. So YouTube for me is something for fun. It's something for therapy. Half the time it's something to meet people with and to enjoy other people. Half the time I just got to get something off my chest. And so yesterday, I made that video and didn't get recorded. And it was like, oh, well, I did get it off my chest. So it was the same way with blogging for me. So, but yes, by all means, read miracles together. And Jeff's going to get there at some point, him and the robot lady. Hey, Paul. Hey, Nathan. I have a particular on-ramp problem. As a father of 4 little ones, I often think about how to teach the concepts of the TLC to them. Do we have concepts? They seem to be born little modernists. Yes, they are. Whether I tell them fantastical stories, they ask either with wide-eyed wonder or with skepticism, depending on the absurdity of the tale. Daddy, did that really happen? Wow. Yeah. T-Grog's heart just went pitter-patter. I try to pull out the larger lessons of meta-truth from it, and it's funny to me that they already have the insistence on an empirical grounding of narrative. I'm not sure how to explain it in a way that would resonate with them. Any suggestions? Don't commit a performative inconsistency with them by trying to rationally and didactically argue them out of it. There's a movie called, was it The Big Fish, or was it a fish story? I don't remember what it was, but it was a movie about this where there was a father who loved to tell stories. And he had these stories that were wild, and there were giants and things like that. And it was a wild movie. It was a really enjoyable movie. And his son was so frustrated with him because he thought his father was making up stories. And as it turned out, the father embellished the stories, sure, but there was something behind all the stories. And see, this is what I think. I think modernity is finally abandoned, or let's say the religion of modernity is finally abandoned when we realize it's a reduction of our life. Now, that can sort of fall prey to sort of a fantastical romanticism. But what you want to do, just keep reading your kids' stories. Just give them better and better stories. Read them the Narnia Chronicles, read them the Lord of the Rings, read them, just keep reading them stories. They will abandon their modernity just because, it's not worth their time. Now, it's worth your time if you're in a laboratory. That's a fine use of it. But the irony with a lot of this modernity is that so often the really good scientists who understand the difference between the lab and the real world, the really good scientists understand the difference between the lab and the real world because they see and notice the difference and are disappointed by it. I forget a survey that was done, and I think we're going to see this. I think we're going to increasingly see again a majority of scientists being Christians, which is so hilarious when someone comes to trot out their modernist religion, because it's like the people who actually do this work don't believe it. Why do you? And I think the reason the reason we're so susceptible to that religion is because it follows on our desire for the fruit of the garden, and not the fruit that is permissible, but the forbidden fruit. It's idolatrous, because if we can, first of all, we trust ourselves more than we trust anyone else, which is a serious delusion. Secondly, it's just this imagination that we can secure the world and secure the outcomes we desire with our own hands. That's what's at the heart of that religion. And it's just not true. It's just not true. So what's true of your children is that they are natural born sinners. And that at some point they're going to have to lay down their idols. And the really hard thing as a parent is to recognize that your children will lay down their idols only after those idols have betrayed and hurt them. Because as a parent, you don't want to see your children in pain, but they will be in pain. And so when Peterson talks about, this idea of the pieta with you give your children as a sacrifice in the world, well, it's true. So just keep giving them better stories. And when they ask silly questions, just laugh and tell them that you love them. And they'll be all right. Probably. When my children ask the really happened story, I respond with, it's always happening. Telling them no robs them of the enchantment, and telling them yes is a lie. It's not a bad answer. End of questions. Oh, we have reached the end of our questions. I have been paying zero attention to the hive mind. And yeah, that's not a bad thing. But what's interesting about that answer is it's not rationalism. It's T. Grogg's dead reckoning that whatever his appropriation of Christianity, whatever his application, whatever that was, with the other things that, because at some point it stopped working for him in the way that it had been working for him before. And so this new thing is working for him now. I don't know how well this is working for him, because he seems awfully fixated on, or maybe it's his generosity just trying to relieve us of what we're enjoying. It's the motivation question. Oh, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. Yeah, it's still on. Yep, it's still here. But I'm about to open it up to anyone that wants to come in. And gotta press the right buttons. Here's this button. Bang. And then here's the paste. And there it is. And you're welcome to come in, and we will chat for a little bit. Whoops. Almost pinned McMo. There we go. The link is pinned. Come on in. The water is fine.
It's set. Hey everybody, how you doing out there? This is Freddie Biggs. I'm gonna sing If I Were a Butterfly. Here it goes. If I were a butterfly, I'd fly in the sky, 'cause Jesus knows why. And if I were a fish in the sea, I'd ask the Lord that I could see.
Little bit of Freddie for the Phlebas. He is in the house. All right. Phlebas jumped in before Michael. So what say you, Phlebas? What do you have to say?
I got a question for you.
Okay.
Something I think you've been thinking about and which keeps coming up. Hello, everyone. So there's been a lot of talk about liturgy, and you had the Christchurch Davis conversation, and then totally coincidentally, my parents ended up there the next week, which is pretty funny because it's in a different country. And you were talking about your classes, and then so Gavin drops that video about we need this liturgical renewal and we need to get back to something solid. And then I've been doing some research on it. So I stumbled across this Waltersdorf chapter, which was very interesting. Kind of the first time I've read something like that. And he was talking about how we have Justin Martyr's liturgy. And he was talking about how all the churches, like all the branches, have really gone through a renewal a while ago. And that we actually sort of came closer together. So I guess my question is, do you think this is necessary? Do you think we're getting back to something solid? Or because now the seekers are actually looking for this. Are we just on like a new seeker sensitive fad? Or, and I'm asking you because you're really not a purist about this, I don't think, right? Yeah.
I'm a pragmatist.
So, yeah. So is this, what do you see in this? I think maybe you've done a little bit of thinking about it. So
I think we are seeing a coming together around liturgy. I think we've understood that it's important, but I think we will continue to see massive diversities in liturgy. So I've worshiped with Haitians in the Dominican Republic. I've, worshiped with many different Pentecostals, high church, many different liturgies in North America. And I think we're going to continue to see many different liturgies. But in terms of the kind of culture that many of us participate in, highly literate, basically weird culture, I think we're going to see that the Anglicans understood something. It's, in a lot of ways, our language comes from Anglicans. And so the Anglicans are sort of winning. When I was in Australia in 2019, my friend Warren, who is one of the people that I led into my Living Stones men's Bible study, and he's there every week. Warren goes to like the original Anglican cathedral in Melbourne. And they run a straight old school Anglican service, and of course Australia's Hillsong. And I told the pastor, I said, your day is coming. That keep doing what you're doing. The crowd will find you. He kind of rolled his eyes because he's like, it'll never happen. And Eric Dirksen says the same thing. We are dozens, but I think it is. Liturgy is always has a cultural context too. And so, and it's part of the reason that Living Stones didn't sort of follow the rest of the Sacramento cluster into that. Even though our Folsom Church and our Roseville Church and our Davis Church are all working that kind of liturgy, Living Stones is still, because African American, it's just a mess. So, but we're celebrating Advent and Lent, and we do the liturgical seasons, so we're not completely off. But I'm called to serve the people that are in front of me. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, Phlebas. Michael, what say you?
Can I distract with a few comments about T-Grog?
Sure.
So I just, encountering him for the last few months on and off, I have so much, I see so much of him in me. He's an older gentleman, and I know that he knows more than me in plenty of areas. But I think about like me and my best friend in the past, who like one of our what we had in common the most is that we had left the tradition that we came from, and we're sort of like these militant atheists of sorts, right? And when I hear how he talks about these things, it's just so familiar. Like like what he represents is something that I see in me very much so still, and his objection to that might be like, well, you didn't take that far enough or something. And I could understand why you would say that, because that's the thing that I would say if I was in his shoes. And so I see that. And then I also think of, remember when David Fuller was putting out this warning about the decode the gurus, folks, we got to take this seriously and all that. And to me, like T-Grog is sort of like an ambassador from that, right? Where he's like our local representative of this decode the gurus, folks. And and I don't know how seriously to take David Fuller's warning of like, we really got to engage with this. Like, I think that's like kind of true. I mean, you could see like where Vervaeke was talking with those guys and going, look, he's trying to take this as serious as I can. What better thing could I do? So I just, there's personally, I find myself struggling to not want to like bash my old self and then kind of project that at him, while also finding a way to seriously engage with what he's saying and going, okay, well, it is hard to talk about this stuff, and the what you're protesting here are protests that I've entertained, and here's like some like little indicators of things that help me look at this from a different angle or a few different angles. But he's not going to be the last, right? And we can't like talk these folks out of it. But I think that we do have the challenge in front of us of how do we engage with that, and part of that is an inward look and a recalling of that version of you that's there, and how to engage with that part of you, no less others that you encounter. So just a few thoughts. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, I think you said it well, and many others have said it. Neil said it a number of times, that a lot of the people in this area, when they see T-Grog going at it, they just kind of smile, because I'm looking at myself 5 years ago. There he is. I'm looking at Job when he came on the channel. And so, nobody, and that's part of the reason people so desperately, I think, want to engage with him in the comments section, because, they're reaching out in love, and he's saying, but you're believing a lie. And they're like, not quite sure who's got the lie here. Yeah, it's fun. All right, Neil, you're next.
I think it's actually healthier to let it play itself out across time.
Yeah.
And those who are here probably for the wrong reasons will get annoyed or distracted or fall away and come back, and let people go, let people come. But actually I wanted to just mention, I just started laughing in the car when you were talking about watching The Chosen, And I was interested if you had any insight in your, I mean, I have enough insight, I think, into your own psychology, but what was it about your own situation where watching on an airplane over somebody's shoulder, you start getting into the show versus being immersed in Christianity? No, I'm not going to touch that, even if everybody says it's really good.
Well, beginning things are hard. And, like I said, with storytelling, the storytellers that are successful, the introduction is really critical, because it's sort of the, back when they had modems, you had the handshake, the modem, the two streams have to kind of find each other and get the data going right, with every meeting. And so I started The Chosen at the beginning, and right away I was off put for probably all of my own reasons. And I think one very dear person to this channel left because she loved it. And to hear that I didn't like it too, she just, couldn't take that I wouldn't share in enjoying what she enjoyed, which, I feel kind of bad about. But then, I just saw it in the middle, and, maybe it was just the moment that I was watching. It was where Jesus is, I think, in Nazareth,
In his hometown.
where they're about to, they want to kill him. And because I liked it, because part of what's, and this also has to do with T-Grog, because if we're not doing anything here, we won't have a T-Grog appear in our midst. And in some ways, his appearance here is a validation of something. And this is exactly the kind of multi-layer sight that the modernist layer can't see, because it's all got to be all within one frame. And you don't understand that there are actually lots of layers going on at the same time. And then I think what a lot of people have learned in this corner is how to play on multiple layers at once, which is really fun. So, no, I saw that segment over somebody's shoulder, and I was reading the subtitles, and I thought, wow, that seems pretty well done. But it hasn't seemed well done enough to have me rearrange my schedule. Part of it is just because I listen to different kinds of media in different settings, and that really takes sitting down in front of the TV and watching it. And I don't think I'm going to convince the rest of the family to do it.
Well, try episode 3. It wasn't until episode 3 that hooked me, and I won't spoil anything. But just if you watch that one episode and you're like, not my thing, I understand. But just season 1, episode 3. That's it.
All right, I'll stuff that in the back of my head, and at some point it might be, oh, what should I do? And I'll see Neil saying season 1, episode 3. I'll say, oh, click, and off we go. So I don't know who was next, Mark or David. I think Mark. Oops, I got to bring the other Mark in. Let me unmute you, Mark or David. Okay,
yeah,
David's first.
I think I was in first. Neil and I have actually been talking a lot about trolling, specifically because Jan God.
Yes,
Jan God has been trolling my Bible study regularly, and at some point I realized he was one of the most consistent people commenting and engaging with the Bible study. And last week, because everyone was doing American Thanksgiving, he made a comment that he would be around. And so I said, okay, email me and come on. And he participated in the Bible study last week on camera for the whole time. And I'm going to be having a conversation with him hopefully in the next week about trolling and about humor, and about humor as to whether or not it's constructive versus destructive, and what the benefits of trolls are, and of catfishing, and of all these things. So I'm reshaping a lot of my thoughts on a lot of this stuff right now because of this community of seeing certain things as especially good. Neil, were you about to say something? Sorry.
Yeah. Think about it in terms of opponent processing, because if you think about trolls in terms of opponent processing, I think there's a lot there.
one of the interesting
Right.
things about T-Grog is that he, again, his part of it, we've talked a lot about text and video, but part of it is almost a mechanistic way that, it has like nothing to do with anything that's going on the screen. It's just
Right.
the things that he throws out there, they're kind of like a chat bot. And that fascinates me too. So,
well, there's been something for me of trying to figure out what he's getting at, because
Yeah.
if you can rise above what the actual comment is to get at what the comment is getting at, that is oftentimes a more productive and interesting conversation.
Yeah,
And that,
because the person is always more interesting underneath. So
absolutely, absolutely.
All right, Mr. Mark from Tbilisi. Oh, go ahead. You have another point, David?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to finish this one off because you've been kind of talking about it for a while. I did I did a stream on Shakespeare, specifically Macbeth, about a week ago, and I wasn't sure if you saw it because I know you.
I didn't.
You were a bit interested. It's on Federici's and my stuff as well. So
Okay.
it's just like I'm going to do a series on theater, and started with Macbeth.
Oh, good. No, I'd
Yeah.
like to see that. So, all right, over on Jacob's Corner, the Federici
Yes.
channel. All right, Tbilisi Mark, next. I can't hear you. I unmuted you, but I don't know if you're muted on that end.
I pressed.
Oh, now
Anyway.
I hear you.
Tbilisi Mark or California Mark?
Georgia Mark.
Say again.
Okay, cool. What was the question?
Well, you jumped in. Would you have something to say or something to ask or wanted to contribute in some way?
I did have a question for you, Paul, but I've lost it. And I'm kicking myself now, but I'm gonna really kick myself tomorrow.
Well,
when it comes back into my head.
We can come back to you. We can let Mark D. Parker
okay, good to see you, Mark.
Say what he wanted to say.
Hey,
we have a spare
good to
Mark
see
right
you.
here for us.
That's it. We'll get you back around. We'll get you back on track, Mark. No, I was watching the whole T-Grog thing. It made me think back to how it's fun. We're closing in on a year since I started participating. It's around here, and I'm like going. It really became clear this morning on Luke's live stream where I've changed and how you guys have helped me clarify what I consider to be the essence of the gospel message as I understand it. And it has been a lot of the give and take and back and forth and the difficulty sometimes because I had a very hard to articulate liberal view that's probably not changed all that dramatically, but y'all have really brought into focus, along with a lot of study, I suppose, what it means to be saved. You want to put it that simple way. Because it was, because Luke's live stream was really interesting in that way, and it seems like it delved into those waters some. So just to articulate that well and effectively, and I've moved also from a T-Grog point of view. I really realized this last few weeks a shift that I've made in terms of going from a modernist point of view to something very different when I came across an old saying, an old John Wimberism that goes like this. He said, believe your beliefs and doubt your doubts, which is totally antithetical to the modernist mindset on how a person grows and develops, which is always question your beliefs doubt everything.
Right.
And Wimber said, if you want to be successful as a Christian, if you want to develop, grow as a Christian, believe your beliefs, doubt your doubts. And
I think it works for entrepreneurs as well.
What helped me with that, Mark, is Peterson's view of that, which is if you're suffering, that's actually a symptom. That's actually your biological indicator that whatever frame of reference you have is probably wrong. So like if things are good, there's no good reason to doubt your doubts or what forget your framing, but
believe your beliefs, doubt your doubts.
Yeah. But in suffering, it becomes a valid reason to doubt my beliefs, because in suffering, Peterson says, you have insufficiently figured out the problem of pain.
But here, Neil, here's where the rub hits. I at some point I crossed the line and decided Jesus was worth following all in. At another point down the road, ow, I'm hurting so much. Why is now suddenly I felt like maybe Jesus, I was less interested in following Jesus. So I thought, well, maybe that was a mistake. So I went in a different direction. See, I should have doubted. I should have questioned that moment of doubt whereas instead of saying, why was it ever a bad idea to not follow Jesus? Why was it ever a bad idea to follow Jesus? See, if I thought it was a good idea to take the plunge at 16 or whatever, why at 36 did it become a bad idea? Why was and then at 56 you come back around and say it's a good idea again? Well, at some point get off the roller coaster and accept and just release, let go, and that's what I take from it. It's not. I know T-Grog is probably convulsing with the threat of magical thinking, but I think we can. Welcome, T-Grog.
The devil's in the room, folks.
He's got his camera working.
3% of us.
I got
3% of us
my
are devils.
TLC T-shirt, sweatshirt on. See? Isn't it great?
Oh, be careful with that movie, T-Grog.
Anyway, it's my just to land the plane and to get off, Paul, is that I just to me you guys have helped me tremendously, but also I don't know how much of that is corner thinking. I mean, I think most corner folks still lean towards the doubt your beliefs, and I mean this is an area where question and doubting it's a very modernist, postmodernist space.
Yeah.
And what Wimber offered was something pre-modern.
Yeah. I
Can I
love you and Ron and your Wimber stuff. I so love that about you two. Anyway, someone's going to say something.
Mark, you got to go.
Can I offer a slight twist to?
Yeah, Tbilisi Mark. You didn't get a chance to say your thing, so go ahead.
Phrasing. Believe your beliefs. I'm good with that. But believe your doubts as well. Don't doubt your doubts. Believe them. So I don't know if you guys want to riff on that and convince me otherwise, but I think we should believe our doubts.
Well,
does that make sense?
Examine your prejudices. Look for your own prejudices.
I'm going to raise my hand to be polite.
Oh, okay.
You'll probably
Mark, the irony of what you said was for about 2.5 or 3 years, the Mormon Church at General Conference has been saying the same thing. Doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith. Doubt your doubts. Now, here's the problem. Most things are false. Most things are false. So if you doubt your doubts, you're going to open your mind up to every crazy idea in the universe. Okay? Literally. So actually, in doubt, there is wisdom. In credulity, there is only darkness.
There's in Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, I still play in that space as well. They transformed Buddhism to be its very unique form. They have two very high virtues. One is they have two high values. One is wisdom, and the other is now it's escaping me. The word is escaping me. But it's wisdom and compassion.
Right.
Which they developed their Buddhism developed after Christianity, interestingly. And those two things, wisdom and compassion, seem very Christian. And I have no reason to doubt those values. Now, if I'm in my Christian practice, which is my primary focus, I follow Jesus with that mindset still very much at work. I'm looking for the wisdom and I'm looking for the compassion.
So
I don't
quickly interrupt, Mark.
No.
Wisdom and compassion are the same thing. There's no difference between wisdom and compassion.
Well, they're non-dual, so yeah, there would be. It was probably
All
would
right,
unify them, but yeah.
Kevin never got to say his piece. So, and there is a revolution happening in the chat that can't why do we let T-Grog colonize us? And I think that's a really good question.
Colonizing.
Go ahead, Gavin.
Sounds sinister.
I guess Tigger, I think it's because we love him, but that's what
I'm the only person here that's going to challenge anything. So everybody else is like a big, hey, that's a great idea, man. It's like,
hey, I've been accused of driving away foundational members of the corner. So you don't get to be the lone bitch in this on this stream, my friend.
Well, you are.
I am a psychopath and serial killer. It's on record.
You are endorsing a doctrine of demons with Tibetan Buddhism. You realize that, of course.
Oh, okay, right? Gavin, but let's let Gavin have his say. Gavin, go ahead.
Well, so I didn't know what love. I really didn't know what love was. So that's there was an obsession in the material world, and I'm still learning what love is, and love is immaterial. So, I hear a story about the hurricanes come through, and there's a man who had a tree land on his house. His wife had died 6 months before from a surprise in surgery, unexpected. And no joke, there had been a storm months before in my area, and I was thinking with my materialistic mind, it's like, why don't we just cut down those trees before they fall on houses? We'll save some money. We can go spend that money in a wise way. But this tree landing on this person's house down in Florida, the church was able to come in and love this man day after day after day and be there for him and connect him with the community. And it's like that. I just learned this in the last few weeks, right? How important love can be, how important this non-material world can be. And I, as an engineer, I get paid to do things in the material world that's valuable, and I get paid good money, but it's not the most important thing. And I didn't know that, and I've slowly learned it more and more, and I'm sure there's a lot more to learn.
The feeling of community is a very important thing, and as an atheist, I don't dispute that. And as a secularist, I would say that religions in general foster a greater feeling of community, which can be both good and can be bad. If you're in the in group and you're in the community, that's good. If you're in the out group, it can be in a lot of trouble.
But this
word, a lot of trouble. Ask the Jews in Europe for centuries.
The word love, the word community, the word friend. It's like, what did Facebook do when they came in and started allowing us to click a button to become friends? It's like the word has lost any depth of meaning. And so every person can only have a meaning connected to that word based on their experience. And so, like, to throw a word around like love or friend or home or community, I think we have to be humble enough to know that there's a deeper meaning to all these words. It's in the spiritual realm, immaterial realm. It's felt within us. It's a phenomenological experience, and it's connected to perhaps mental health and the health of society and culture as a whole, like of extreme importance. It's at the root cause of every problem.
Just because it's phenomenological doesn't mean it's spiritual.
I mean,
okay.
I would
all right, T-Grog.
Alex.
T-Grog, you came in. Did you just want to come in to respond to things, or did you have
well,
a payload you wish to deploy?
I'm getting some let's say aspersions cast on me.
Oh, we love you. Otherwise, I would ban you.
Well, I'm a modernist, and I'm an evil materialist, and all this.
I never said you were evil. I never said you were evil.
And I don't understand anything.
No, I didn't say that either.
I'm very familiar with Christian theology. I'm very familiar with the Bible. I'm pretty familiar with church history.
Yeah.
Because I took it very seriously, very seriously, as seriously as you did, Paul. Probably, except I didn't learn Greek and Hebrew. I just used concordances. So the idea that I don't know what I'm talking about is false. Okay. Now, the nebulous Christianity of this sector, who knows what this means?
But why it's here? That's what I want to know.
Look, I'm a retired guy. I like conversations. I used to have some Mormon buddies who got too damn old to hang out with anymore. They started getting Alzheimer's. I used to talk to them, but it's interesting, and it's interesting from my perspective to see where Christianity is going. Christianity is like it's an organism that evolves over time.
Whoa.
It keeps evolving and changing.
But when you say Christianity you sound like it's a real thing.
Well, it's an ideological position.
I have a question for T-Grog.
In that sense, it's a real thing.
No, but you see, the problem, you might want to think about something. Are relations real? Because every time you say something is true, and
of course they're real.
What are they made of?
They're supervenient on material objects.
Aren't they illusory?
They're supervenient. No, they're real.
What does that word supervenient mean?
Supervenient means I can think and I can reason. It's not material. It's a process that's going on. That's supervenient. Wait a minute.
Real?
It's a supervenient process.
What are they made of?
That it's dependent upon my brain.
So it's illusory. So if all people were to disappear, processes would disappear.
It's illusory. That's not true. It is real, but it's real in the sense that it's dependent upon the material substratum.
Can you measure them?
If there were no people, there would be no reasoning. If there were no people,
in other words,
no love,
reason itself is illusory. Anyway, go ahead, Alex. You wanted a question for T-Grog.
No, it's just supervenient.
So,
it's not illusory.
I've got the chance to hear T-Grog many times, and especially when he posts his stuff on the chat. So here's the thing, T-Grog. I'm one of 8 billion people. You're one of 8 billion people. You've read, you studied, and here's the question: are you perfect? Because I know I'm going to assume that you think that you. So we're all imperfect, right?
Of course.
And is there? My question is coming. So my question is: have you been wrong before?
Of course.
Have you changed your mind? And when it comes to, because you always seem to imply whenever you chat. Whenever you say something, you always imply as if you're the only one that has the ultimate authority and everybody else is wrong. The church fathers is wrong. Oh, the pastor's wrong. The priest is wrong. The bishop's wrong. Everybody's wrong. T-Grog is right.
No, I'm a fallibilist. But I would just say this. What you have to do, in my opinion, is try and base your beliefs on evidence and logic and reason and do the best you can. We're only evolved creatures, okay? Our minds don't work very well. That's why people believe in Mormonism. That's why people believe in polygamy. That's why people believe in Scientology. They do all sorts of crazy things. And they can
why shouldn't I believe in polygamy? Polygamy is true.
Well, polygamy actually is in the Bible. So that's true.
Tigran, if you're so sure about this, and you say we're all infallible and blah blah blah, how can you be so sure? That makes no sense.
We're fallible.
Yeah, we're fallible. So why are you so convinced about your argument?
Well, if somebody would give me some convincing reasons or some evidence, that would be good. And I've changed my mind before.
My video on the Trinity.
Why don't I believe in Mormonism? Because Mormonism,
my
there's
video
no
on the
evidence
Trinity,
for
okay?
it.
It perfectly unites science and
Okay.
religion.
All right.
Don't watch it.
I think we've given T. Grog his due. He can. Why don't you have a YouTube channel?
I've been busy with other things. Actually, I'm working on a book about the guru Jordan Peterson and his latest book. So I'm working on that, and I did publish a book on miracles in the early church, and it's on Amazon. And I'm doing that, and I just haven't gotten around to doing a YouTube channel. But,
all right. Alex, go ahead, Alex.
Just another quick interrupt.
Okay, yes, Mark.
T-Grog, there are certain, how do I phrase them, darlings of this little corner that we're not allowed to say anything negative about.
Of course, that's true.
We got Jordan Peterson. He's one of the darlings.
Jonathan Peugeot.
We've got Martin Shaw, who I particularly like, actually. We've got Paul Kingsnorth, who I have a huge amount of doubt about.
Really?
I'm sure other people can add to the list of darlings of this little corner. And we're not allowed to say anything rude about them. So please don't.
I thought I was crazy. Thank you. I thought I was crazy.
You're not crazy. There are these darlings, and it annoys me as well.
All right. I am very interested in Emily's question, because this is what David was. And this is actually, of course, it's my decision because it's my channel. Is there virtue in and now, but see, I also have questions with this whole platforming thing, because I could, of course, mute T-Grog, and then he wouldn't be able to have the fun that he has and I didn't have to bring him in. So
no, you didn't. Thank you, Paul. That says something for you.
Well, thank you.
It's a very unchristian thing for you to do.
Well, the question and then the question is, well, what's the question? Is this, because I know many people feel this is unproductive, because I can land my best argument and throw it at T-Grog and he's still going to be the same, and he's throwing his argument at us and we're still the same. So in other words, it's kind of like talking to your dog, but there's only 7 words your dog knows, but all the rest is.
So who's the dog in that story?
So most of the time we're wasting our breath, except that most of the time we're saying it for our own reasons. So what's the over under on this thing, folks?
Well, T-Grog enjoys adversarial attention. I've known a number of people do that.
I just want to know what...
Like I'm like that too. Like if a bunch of people surround me and are challenging me on issues like evolution, like let's go. That's fun for me. But like most people are not like that, and most people in the corner are not like that. I think there has to be a parameter where it's like, okay, this is the T-Grog time or something like that. I don't know how to do that. Like there are dozens of people in this space, Tim, that want to have conversations with you, but you enjoy genuinely more like coming in and being the dog with the bone. Like that's what you enjoy. I get it. Like it's
I'm
fun.
being talked about here incessantly. Okay.
It's a good defense.
So I'm coming
That's
on
really
here
good
to say,
defense.
hey guys, I'm not the devil.
They're talking about me at the playground. They're talking about me. I have to go to the playground because they're talking about me and be surrounded by them.
Neil, if you don't mind me
See,
interjecting.
that's an ad hominem argument. In other words,
Okay.
because I enjoy this.
Michael gets to weigh in on this too.
Go ahead, Michael.
So to me, this interaction is representative of having to confront modernity at all. Like what T-Grog brings to the table is part of like this harder conversation, because I think he represents that position really well, the scientific, modern, kind of postmodern position, right? That we're all
I'm not a
either
postmodernist. I'm not.
Exactly. In fact, I think that's right. And so we're grappling with that. I mean, if that's a consistent theme through like all the different bubbles that seem to collide in each other, like this larger Peterson sphere, the symbolic world stuff, the whatever, right? Like one of the things that is in common with all of that is this like grappling with presuppositions of modernity. So I think that's a big reason why this is so interesting and why it keeps bubbling up again and again.
I don't want to go back to the dark ages, folks. That's kind of what I'm trying to do here.
All right. Anybody else on this topic?
Can I say something?
We're in the dark ages. We've dropped back into the. Not sure it's bad.
I'm going to let the Famiglia in first, and then Andrew. And it's not a live stream unless Andrew's chewing. So.
I was just going to point out, because this is something that's come up in Bridges of Meaning recently with some discussions over there, but I think there's this issue of, I don't know, we used to call it spirit of geometry versus spirit of finesse, right? Or what is it, philo Nicaea versus philosophia, you know. But I think there is this sense in which like sometimes there's discussions, and I think it's kind of the vibe of the corner is discussions to try and understand common ground, to try and step into other people's perspective and to try and learn from that, and maybe try and broaden my own perspective a little bit, versus trying to find and trying to argue about like which is the one frame to rule them all, right? You know, and which is the right, you know, exact perspective that everyone should have, because everything else is wrong except for my one way of looking at the world and talking about the world and framing the world, you know.
Partly because we're not consciously in charge of the frames that we possess or promote, which is the craziest thing. So we love our frame and we want to promote it and possess it because we don't want to be alone. But we didn't choose our frame. Our frames chose us in some ways.
That's like the predestination again, right?
Oh, those darn Calvinists. Okay, Andrew, did you have something to say, or were you just going to remind us that we are creatures that need to eat, especially when we're young men like you?
I don't know. It's good meeting y'all. I've never seen T-Grog before, I guess. Yeah, I kind of don't know what the topic is, but hey.
Topic doesn't matter. Topic doesn't matter.
Andrew is such a poser. Such a poser. He comes off as this slouchy Zoomer. Oh, dude, I'm not in touch with what you people are talking about. Yeah. And then he comes on, does an hour and a half with me, and he's as sharp as a tack, answering one question after another, insight upon insight. The man is near a genius. So stop posing like you're like, nah, I'm just gonna chew on camera and pretend.
All right, I'm going to land the plane at 1:30 because I got stuff to do. So, final comments. You are being platformed for 30 seconds. Alex, you got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So, my point of view is when Christ was teaching and doing miracles, people saw the miracles, heard the teachings, and still rejected them. So, that happened to him. I'm not going to expect any different. And we are free to choose, not by force, not by anything. I don't believe in any of that. We're free to choose. Conversations are important because of that. We say what we have to say. We take in what we need to take in. And if they rejected Christ, even though they saw the miracles and heard him teach, why would it be any different today? So there you are.
All right, there's Alex. Okay, who else has their their platform for a moment. Michael, your platform.
Belief, suffering, and love. Love, I think, has to be understood from a Christian context, an agapic love, putting others higher than you, loving them more than you would love yourself. Suffering's inevitable. From my experience in bringing in entering into a Christian tradition again is learning how to suffer well. And then belief. I'm a really big fan of Father Stephen DeYoung's take on this, where epistis that you see all throughout the New Testament is better understood as a way to live, faithfulness, rather than some kind of heady knowledge. And so it's not some kind of assertion that's happening mentally, but what is actualized in how you walk.
Emily, I am a natural born troll, so I apologize. Don't take it too bad. We're just having fun, because what I like to do is have fun. So thank you, Michael. All right, who's got the platform next?
Read the Bible carefully. Study church history. Think about what you're reading. Get a gospel parallel. Look at the differences between the gospels. Ask yourself the question, why are these differences there?
Yes, I love it. All right.
Can I follow up? Can I follow up?
Absolutely, Mark. Your turn for
Okay, my 30 seconds. All right. 1, Andrew, you're invited back. Come back on my channel and talk again. 2, you got my email and my number. Tim Tegrog, do you want to come catch a demon with me? Come on board. You're invited too. Sure. Emails on my channel.
House of Woo.
Contact
the House of Woo.
Come,
I love it.
well, or if you want to see how I interact with people who think very, very differently than I do, and see how I platform them, you can look at my interview with Nathan Ormond. It's one of my best thumbnails ever, and it was an excellent discussion. And he did not come away feeling disrespected, and I don't think he came away thinking he was dealing with a magical thinker. And Mark too.
I'm one of them.
And Mark too. And so, yeah.
I want to talk about the Bible.
Let's talk about the Bible. We will
talk about it.
Okay, please. I'll give you as much time and as many episodes as you like.
I love this. This is great. All right, this is my best idea yet. Who needs their platform yet? Gavin's platform.
I get 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a water project for the Christmas 2024. I'm going to pull a page out of the Grimgriz playbook and try to raise money. So fundraise.neverthirstwater.org/love God, love people. So.
All right, there it is. Gavin uses his 30 seconds to bring water to the world. I love it.
The eternal water and the both material and spiritual water.
Both material and spiritual, living water flowing up. Okay, Mark, are you ready for your platform?
30 seconds to say, we're all, God, what do I want to say? Okay, I had a conversation with Mark last Sunday. He's going to drop it soon. We're all born with the light of God in our eyes. We lose it, and we spend the rest of our life trying to find it again. That's about it.
All right. What I love is that our own, whoops, I got rid of everyone. I didn't mean to do that. Here we go back. Where's the one I want? I want this one. Our own. See, we say Mark D. Parker is a serial killer, but I've seen Andrew kill serial on many occasions.
Gotta go, folks.
All right. Take care, Tim. Okay, Andrew, you've got the big platform. You get the last word. How will you use it?
It's not going to be the last word because I've got a question. I was wondering, I watched whatever Peterson's Genesis lectures, half of them. I watched his Exodus series, maybe a third of it. And I'm wondering, should I watch the Gospels thing? It's been kind of, I lost interest on the other two. What makes it worthwhile?
All right, good question. What are you looking for?
I don't know, man. I just want to like understand the text. You know?
Go ahead, Michael. Are you waving goodbye, or you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm interested in watching those because I feel like I am watching how a important part of the West is grappling with the way that they understand their tradition. And so rather than my own understanding, it's almost like a reality TV thing where I'm watching things play out.
What it is a group of people, some of whom are developing friendships, sharing their thoughts as they read through Bible passages. That's what it is. And if you're interested in the people, you might be interested in what they have to say. And if you're interested in the Bible, for me, I have a whole wall of commentaries here. And part of what happens with commentaries often is that there's a lot of repetition because the frames impact what's in the frame. And what's sort of fun about Peterson's thing is that I'll hear some different things from some different people, and I track a lot of these people. So that's kind of interesting. But I can very much understand that if you didn't find the Exodus series compelling, I'm not sure that you'll find this compelling. What do you find compelling, Andrew?
I don't know, man. Like usually when biblical scholars like give a lecture on like specific parts of the Bible, like that's awesome, you know?
What do you like about it?
I don't know. Gives me wisdom. At least I hope so.
So what are you looking for? What do you want? What do you want wisdom to give you?
Meaning, I guess.
Okay. That's still pretty vague. Do you want a girl? Do you want to graduate? I mean, what do you
What?
Get married, have kids.
We'll see.
All right. Okay. That's it for this live stream. And Andrew, we still haven't heard what Andrew wants. He laughed pretty hard at the girl thing, though, so don't quite know how to interpret that. Now he's snickering. All right, everyone. It is time to go, and some branding must be played. Let's do Gavin.
Well, I don't know about the meaning crisis, left, right, black, white, or other vices. Which Jesus Christ is right, or if we're all saved. From my perspective, our propositions participate procedurally, running in circles. Remember in body, we're in the age of decay. Symbolically speaking, the reapers are reaping, them damn egregores are whispering sweetly. We're all NPCs in the belly of the beast. Red pill, blue pill, bread pill, Mars Hill, or DMT, or whatever you feel. Got one and number two, it's all the same damn thing. So clean your room, repent on Zoom, ontology for dummies, a bird's eye view. 'Cause if you really knew, could you really even say? Totally depraved, all totally saved, a total disposition from the bed we all made. Or is it the elect, or are we just insane? From John Vervaeke to Jonathan Pajot and Jordan Peterson to the Chris Pacou Show, Paul Vanderklays and Griswold Grimm and all the dice he shakes. The estuary ditty is a little bit cringy, ain't quite the U-shaped or the hero's journey. All the NPCs in the flood treading water to watch you save the day with a bunch of chitter-chatter. From the ortho bros to the Catholic Joes or atheistic Jobs to Protestant folks, the Joe Schmoes and Jewish Jacobs and everything in between. So love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul, with all your mind and your fingers and toes, all your neighbors too, as if they were your own. So love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul, and with all your mind and your fingers and toes, all your neighbors too, as if they were your own.
Ducks eat bread.
They do. They like it.
Where are you here?
Oh, there I am. Hey.
Where are you? Where?
Got me?
Oh boy. Yeah. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me.
Come on,
Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Yeah.
Walk with my mama.
You walk with my mama.
Walk with me.
Walk with me too.
You walk with my mama.
Yeah.
Walk with me.
And walk with me too.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Jesus
journey.
I want Jesus.
Want Jesus.
Walk with me.
Walk with me. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. All along this Jesus journey. Hold my hand, Lord. And hold my hand.
Walk with Moses.
You walk with Moses.
Walk with me.
Walk with me.
You walk with Moses. Walk with me.
Walk with me.
While I'm home.
Yeah.
Jesus
journey.
I want Jesus.
I want Jesus to walk with me.
Now, Say, walk with me, Lord. How y'all doing? Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me. I'm on my yeah, Lord. I want Jesus. I want Jesus to walk with me. To walk with me. Walk with David, a little shepherd boy. Yeah, you made him a great king. I know David shouted for joy. He walked with David, and he's a little shepherd boy. You made him a great king, and David shouted for joy. That's right. Oh, yeah. So walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. You gotta walk with me, Lord.
Yeah! That was rocking great, brother.
Oh, yeah.